Glasgow Rangers Nation. This is your everyday Rangers news channel. I'm Owen James. This is your pre-Old Firm video, guys. It's Old Firm Eve, like Christmas Eve, but better. Kind of. I don't know. Depends how you feel about Christmas, really, I suppose. Doesn't it? But yeah, we are standing on the verge of the final Old Firm game of the season. Tomorrow at Ibrox, Rangers will take on Celtic for the final time this season. And Celtic, obviously, you know, they are the champions going into tomorrow's game. And that is unfortunate, very unfortunate. And just, you know, the shit we have to put up with. But there we go, guys. It's what it is. It is what it is. You know what? Life's life, innit? But we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about the possible team. I'm going to talk about my team. I'll talk about, you know, the team that I think that Barry will play, which I think will be shit as per usual. We'll talk about the possible outcome of the game. I want to talk about Hamza. I want to talk about Kevin Thelwell. But I want to start off today by just congratulating somebody. Yes, that's right. I want to just congratulate Scotty Arfield and Falkirk on promotion to the SPL. Fantastic to have Falkirk back in the big time. And fantastic for one of our own. Yes, Mr. Scotty Arfield, obviously part of that Falkirk team that are promoted back to the SPL. Look, you know, no matter what, I mean, I don't know what the situation is with Scotty and his contract at Falkirk or what he's intending to do and, you know, with his future, his career. But I really want, you know, Falkirk back in the Premier League, Scottish Premier League, to come to Ibrox, and I want Scotty to be part of that team so we can give him the Scotty salute and we can welcome him back to the SPL. We can welcome Scotty. Hopefully he doesn't score against us. I really do hope that doesn't happen. He probably will, because let's face it, all ex-players do tend to score against their former teams, but I really want to see Scotty back. I really do. The guy's a legend. The guy is an absolute legend, and he's a Rangers man through and through. We know he loves the club. We know he loves being part of Rangers. We know that it's in his blood. You've only got to see that. I mean, you had you know, his celebrations when we score. He's the way he gets on with the players still. His love of, you know, his love of the club. The fact he comes and watches the club. The fact that he used the Super Soaker at the Callum Beattie concert as if, you know, taking the piss out of the Celtic fans. Gotta say, absolutely love this man, and he's done so much for this club and scored some very memorable goals for this club. And look, I really hope that when Falkirk come to play in the SPL next season, and I really hope they do. I mean, I hope they come up, and I hope Partick Thistle come up as well. I really do. I'd love to see Ross County and St Johnstone disappear out of the league. I think two Mickey Mouse clubs like them do need to disappear, and it'd be nice to have Falkirk and Partick Thistle in the SPL. But look, I mean, Scotty, I'd welcome him back. The guy's a legend. The guy's an absolute legend. He really is. And perhaps not a legend, but you know what I mean, just in terms of who he is and what he's done for the club. And I just love the guy to bits. Absolutely love Scotty. Mr. Arfield, I salute you, sir. Really do welcome you back next season. Hopefully, please, let's keep our fingers crossed that Scotty is back. Right, let's talk a little bit of Old Firm news. So, obviously, it's Old Firm tomorrow. It is the final Old Firm of the season. It currently stands, you know, out of the 3 games that have been played in the league, we've won 2, they've won 1. You know, we had the cup final, which went to penalties. Obviously, that goes down as technically as a draw. So the 4 games this season, obviously, 1 win for them, 2 wins for us, and a draw. You know, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, to kind of come out of this season having beaten them 3 times. I mean, look, I get it. It means nothing realistically because they've won the trophies. They'll have won probably, you know, by the time this season's over, they'll have won another treble. And that's got to stop. You know, it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for a club like Rangers to be constantly playing second fiddle to them. It's unacceptable for us to be in this position. It's just awful. I mean, watching them trash Glasgow, which is what they do. They don't celebrate. They trash the city because they are little scumbags. You know, they're with no standards. But look, that's what it is. Now, one thing I want to talk about ahead of tomorrow was Brendan Rodgers' comments. Brendan Rodgers talked about the Guard of Honour. Brendan Rodgers, you know, he talked about respect. He talked about the fact that it's respect, you know, to give the champions the Guard of Honour. You know, it's kind of become a thing. I mean, you know what, I'll be honest with you, I can't ever really remember it when I was growing up, it happening an awful lot. But, you know, there's certain rivalries around the world that you just can't ever have a Guard of Honour for. You know, you can't ever imagine, you know, you can't imagine certain teams clapping other teams onto the field as champions. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't. I mean, it's a very football thing. It doesn't happen in American sports. I mean, I can't. I watch a lot of NFL, a lot of NHL, a lot of NBA. It doesn't happen in those sports. You don't get the Lakers clapping the Bulls on, for example. I mean, or the Blackhawks clapping on the Sharks, or the Sharks clapping on the Knights, or anything like that. It just doesn't happen in American sports. I don't know if it happens around the world particularly. You can't imagine Real Madrid or Barcelona clapping each other onto the field. The hatred there between those two. And, when you ratchet up a little bit further to the Celtic Rangers rivalry, I think to say that it's a respect thing, Brendan Rodgers has kind of lost the plot a little bit on this one. Respect's a two-way street, Brendan. I don't genuinely think that you have a lot of respect for our club. Your fans don't, your players don't. You've kind of proved that through the statements you've made in the media and the way you've conducted yourself. So respect's a two-way street. And you talk about wanting respect and demanding respect because you've won a title. Well, yeah, fair enough. They've been the best team this season. Unfortunately, they have been dominant, as Barry Ferguson himself said. But they don't deserve respect because it's a two-way process, respect. Now, I just want to kind of flag up a couple of things. First of all, every 11th of November, we obviously have the poppies on our shirts to commemorate the war dead, to commemorate those who died for our freedoms, commemorate those who died for our rights to sit here and talk as we do, and to be, kind of talk openly as we do, and to have a freedom of speech as we do now. This is one of the things that we kind of hold in this country has been important. And no matter what you think of the present Labour government, which are, I think, trying to take away our right to freedom of speech, Keir Starmer is an absolute arsehole. But, it is a situation that, that war dead, that the wearing of the poppy is a mark of respect. Now, they won't do it. Let's put this light on for a minute. They won't wear it. They will not wear the poppy as a mark of respect. So they have no respect there. Their fans cannot stay silent for a 60-second silence or a 2-minute silence, however long it is, for the war dead, for those who died for their freedoms, for who died for their right to behave as absolute little arseholes that they absolutely are. For their right to support terrorists, to fly terrorist flags, to behave with no decorum, no respect towards anybody, to behave in such a way that is just absolutely rancid and morally repugnant to anyone who has any sort of morals in this world. Their right to do that has kind of been defended by those people who died, yet they cannot stay silent for that minute, 2 minutes. They ruin it every year. They're absolute fans. Their fans are absolute. Just for that one thing. I mean, you can include so much more. So much more, don't get me wrong. But for me, that core thing there, disrespect for people who died for our freedoms, that is absolute scumbag, low life, disgusting behaviour. It really genuinely is. And for Brendan Rodgers to sit there and talk about respect, to me, just makes me want to throw up. It rankles with me. It makes me just genuinely want to just shake him and say, you don't know what you're talking about, mate. You genuinely have not got a clue what you are talking about, because respect's a two-way process, Brendan, and you have no respect for anybody but yourself. You're an arrogant, narcissistic prick. You really are. And, for me, it's out of order. And they won't get a Guard of Honour tomorrow at Ibrox, and quite rightly so. They'll get booed and hissed and abused and catcalled and whatever. And good on you. And Rangers fans, if you're going to the game tomorrow, make sure you give them it with both barrels. Absolute scum they are. But there we go. That's just my thoughts on it. I mean, like I said, it really did wind me up, that thought. And I just genuinely don't understand how he can honestly believe that he's going to get that. And, one thing you've got to kind of accept that in Scottish football is different. People talk about rivalries in England. Liverpool, Manchester United have a rivalry. Tottenham, Arsenal, there is a rivalry. Man United, Man City, there is a rivalry. Villa, Birmingham, there is a rivalry. So there is rivalries there. But they're not as intense. They're not as hate-fueled. They're not as heated as the Rangers-Celtic rivalry. It just isn't there. And, there is a lot of what goes on in the games between those clubs that does show some respect between each other. But I think the days of respect, between the two clubs are gone now. Even more so since in 2012, since their refusal to refer to it as the old firm, since their refusal to refer to us as anything but Sevco. They've really kind of proved that they have no respect for anybody but themselves. And they don't deserve respect. They genuinely don't. So for me, for Brendan Rodgers to sit there and talk about respect is just an absolute joke. Absolute joke. It really is. But there you go. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts anyway on that one. Right, look, tomorrow it's going to be a weird one. It's a strange one. It's a game we want to win. Of course we want to win it. It's an old firm game. And people talk about, it's a dead rubber. There's nothing riding on it. I think that's utter rubbish. There's always something riding on these games. You can never have a rivalry game between two teams that hate each other, between two teams that genuinely cannot stand the sight of each other, between derby rivals. You can't have a dead rubber, a meaningless game. There is always an intensity there. There is always a desire to one up your opponents. No matter what sport around the world, you look at rivalry games, and there's dead rubbers played in all sports. Around the world. When teams haven't qualified for the playoffs in American sports. The New York, and I'm not saying their rivalries as intense as ours, but the New York Rangers versus the New York Islanders. For example, when the Seattle Seahawks and the 49ers play each other and they're not in playoff contention, there's still rivalry there. If Man United and Man City are not going for a title, there's still rivalry there. When Arsenal and Tottenham are not going for a title, there's still rivalry there. And there's still a desire to win that game. And I think to sit and say there's nothing riding on tomorrow, it's a dead rubber, it doesn't matter, there's no pressure on, is absolute rubbish. There's always pressure on. Because if you lose tomorrow, you are going to get absolute pelters from your fans. If Celtic lose tomorrow, their fans will go apeshit about it. They will absolutely lose the plot about it, because even though they're champions, they will be absolutely livid with the fact that A, they've lost 3 times out of 4 to us, and B, they've lost to us now when our home record is absolutely bloody shocking. I mean, I was reading a statistic this morning about our recent home form, and it's absolutely awful. I mean, genuinely bad. I mean, I think it's the last. We haven't won for 6-7 games now. I mean, it's awful. It's genuinely appalling. Since that defeat in the Cup to Queen's Park, we have not won a game at home. And that's how bad it's been. So, if they were to come to Ibrox and lose tomorrow, I think there genuinely would be a revolution there. And by the same token, if we lose tomorrow at Ibrox, then you're going to have our fans really, really angry, really upset at the fact we've lost again at home. We've lost to them. Again, we've given them their chance to rub our noses in it and everything like that. So I think to sit and say there's nothing riding on these games is absolute and utter pish. There's always something riding on these games. And I think, if in the ever unlikely event Rangers and Celtic were 3rd and 4th in the SPL behind whoever, there'd still be rivalry on these games. There'd still be something to play for. Pride, status, one-upmanship. Because I'll tell you something, if you work with Celtic fans, you don't want to go into work Monday morning having lost to them, because you're going to get it, and you're going to get it with both barrels. So I think, at the end of the day, you want to make sure we win tomorrow, because let's face it, it matters. It always matters. Of course it does. Look, the team tomorrow, I honestly believe that Barry needs to show some common sense. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Barry Ferguson, when he was appointed, I was all for the appointment. I was very pro that appointment. I thought, that he would come in, he'd do a good job for us, because he's a Rangers legend, he understands the club. But, he's kind of let me down a little bit. His win percentage is 36%, which is just genuinely awful for a Rangers manager. I think it's one of the worst of all time. His tactical awareness is appalling. He changes formations 3-4 times a game, which just confuses the hell out of the players. If you're going to, change formation, certainly, but give that time, that formation to settle in. I think, was it the Bilbao game when he changed formation 3-4 times in the second half, not giving them time to actually try and work one formation out? I mean, it just doesn't work. His substitutions are often at the wrong time. His substitutions oftentimes make no sense. Like when he took Hadji off, even though Hadji was playing best, and left Dessers on, even though Dessers was playing shit. Don't get it. His team selections are awful. Keeps picking Dessers, even though the guy misses chances right, left and centre. Doesn't pick Hadji, who's probably our best midfield player. Plays Hamza around the left wing, even though he's not a winger. I mean, he's been absolutely appalling on the left wing. I mean, he's been just shocking on that left wing, but he's not, because he's not a left winger. He just doesn't seem to get it and doesn't seem to understand it. And I just genuinely am upset. I was genuinely upset. I really wanted him to work out. And look, I would have loved it if he'd come in he'd have won all the games and we'd have played fantastic football and there'd been progression there and it'd been aggressive and it'd been good attacking football and we'd won and we'd gone on the Europa League, at least made the semis and all that. And yeah, I'd have been all behind the Barry for manager. But, you know, Barry Manilow would probably make a better manager than Barry Ferguson, to be honest with you. But Barry Ferguson shouldn't be the Rangers manager under any circumstances in the future. The guy's not up to the job. He's proved that. But I really hope tomorrow that he shows some common sense and actually picks a team that's got a chance of doing something. Play players in their positions, Barry. You know, play them where they're actually going to do a job for you, where they're actually going to play well. Tomorrow, I would seriously, and I don't think for a minute he's going to do this. I genuinely don't. I mean, I honestly believe that if you ask me now to go down to the bookies with £100 and say, right, put money on this, who starts up front? I'd say he's going to start Cyril Dessers, even though Dessers is probably the worst striker at the club. I mean, 3 goals out of 32 chances. I mean, the guy is just an absolute pub striker joke of a player. I think he'll start him. I don't think he'll start Hadji. I think Hamza will play left wing and it'll be shocking and he'll get dragged off and Dessers will stay on and it'll be frustrating and it'll be boring and it just won't work and it'll be down to his tactical naivety and his tactical unawareness. So for me, I would go with Butland in goal. I'd put Butland back in goal. Liam Kelly's been appalling the last couple of games. Liam Kelly's a backup goalkeeper. That's all he is. He's not a starter. He's someone you bring in an emergency. You don't start him. He's just not up to the job. Yes, Butland has had a shocking season. And yes, Butland does need to be sold at the end of the season. But at the moment, even he is a little bit better than Liam Kelly. We need a new goalkeeper next season. Simple as. Back four, I think, has to pick itself because of the form and the injury situation. I would start Sterling over Tav if Sterling was fit. But Sterling isn't fit. So Tavernier has to start, unfortunately. Suter and Proper will be the central defensive pairing. Balogun has obviously just come back from an injury, so I doubt he starts. Casanwejo is back, which is good news. And we never thought we'd see him again in a Rangers shirt. But by that token, I think you don't bring him straight back into the starting lineup of an Old Firm game. I think if we were playing, Dundee or Dundee United or Aberdeen, then yes, you probably could put Casanwejo back in there. But I don't think you can throw him back in a Old Firm game. So Suter and Proper and Ciala, I just had a appalling game. I think he needs more time to get better, to improve. So I think realistically, Proper's your only option there. You know, as bad as Proper is, and he's not great, don't get me wrong. You know, you got to hope that having someone as fantastic and as brilliant as John Suter next to him brings him through the game. You know, and I love John Suter. John Suter should be Rangers captain if Nico Raskin isn't. John Suter should be the first name down on the team sheet. Hiefte at left back, which again is not great because he can't defend, but he does pose a good option going forward. He can attack, and I think he can push back Kuhn, he can push back Alistair Johnston, and I think, keep their right side on alert that he's going to bomb on and cause them problems. Midfield 3, Raskin to sit in the 6 role, be the metronome at the base of the midfield to control things. I mean, Nico Raskin has been the player of the season this season. No matter what you think of those Player of the Year awards that went on at Ibrox, personally think it should have been done behind closed doors and nothing should have been put out. I think the club are a bit stupid doing that. I think Raskin has been the player of the season. He's been absolutely phenomenal this season. I mean, he's the best Belgian midfielder in the SPL. Arne Engels is an £11 million flop. But Raskin is, he is a quality player. And I think he will be, how he goes tomorrow will be a lot how Rangers midfield goes tomorrow. I think if he can get control of the midfield, if he can dominate possession, if he can win his duels, then I think our midfield can get control. Dio and Hadji ahead of him. You just have some more creativity there. Dio can dig in. He can play. Hadji has to play. I mean, the last time he played Celtic at Ibrox, he was the best player on the park. He dominated them. He scored a goal. He played well. He's kind of the guy who can inspire. He can create. He can play that killer ball. So to me, Hadji's got to play. And I think there's no kind of, coincidence that when he came out of the starting lineup as Barry came in and the team started to fail and not play well because Hadji wasn't in the team. And I don't get Barry's thinking behind that. It just makes zero sense to me. Front 3, I would go with Cheney on the right. I'd put Danilo and Hamza up top. Now, what I'd do with that is do what, God knows I'm wrong with me here, but what Clement did. Give Danilo and Hamza the ability to interchange as they did. Now, what works and what seems to work is Danilo and Hamza up top. I don't know why it works. What I do is because Dessers is very much immobile. He just stays in the middle. He won't go out wide. He won't do anything else other than stay in the middle because he thinks he's the main man, even though he is a complete and utter dick. Hamza, I think, has to play as the 9. He has to be the main man. He will score goals. And as we remember, you go into that last game at, not you, Scotty, at Parkhead, that goal that he scored, he was the man that finished them off. He was the man that scored the killer goal. And I just think, the chance falls to him. I trust him to put the ball in the back of the net. Whereas chance falls to Dessers. He's more likely to knock out Hamish in the back row of the stand than he is to put the ball in the back of Kasper Schmeichel's net. So to me, you've got to put Hamza up top, put Danilo into the left side. Danilo can play out left. He has proved that. He did it for Feyenoord. He's done it before in his career. He's done it for Ajax. He can also drift into the middle. He can provide a more mobile. Now, with Cheney, Hamza and Danilo, you have very much a more mobile front three. You have a front three that can interchange, that can move around, that can cause Celtic's back four trouble. And if you go back to the Klopp days of, when he had Mane, Salah and Firmino, there was that movement, constant movement of strikers, and it was effective, and it won them the Premier League title, it won them European Cups. That fluidity of movement of the front three. Real Madrid have it with Vinicius and Rodrigo and Bellingham. You've got to have that fluidity. It causes confusion in the opposition defences. For me, that's how we've got to go tomorrow. Do I think Barry will do that? No, I don't. Do I think Dessers will start? Unfortunately, I do think Dessers will start and be shit again. But look, I just think that we've got to have some sort of invention there. We've got to have some sort of creation there, some sort of difference maker. And Hamza and Danilo, for me, are more difference makers. They will score goals. They will create more chances. They are better than Dessers. And look, I know that some people don't agree with me, and that's fine. And you have a different opinion. Fine, have a different opinion. But like I said, you're not going to change my view on ever. The Dessers is one of the worst strikers that's ever played for the club, and he needs to be sold. I've been a Rangers fan since 86, 87, and I've got to say I've never ever hated any Rangers player ever, even some of the really shit ones. But I hate Dessers and I hate Tav now. I just can't stand them. I genuinely get annoyed at seeing them in a Rangers shirt. They genuinely make me want to punch a wall, throw up. That's how bad it is. I can't stand either of them. Dessers' face winds me up. I think we need to go with a more inventive attacking plan for the game tomorrow. I think Dessers against Carter Vickers is just is a nomad. He's never ever caused Carter Vickers any problems. He's never when was the last time Dessers performed in an Old Firm game? He hasn't. He's never performed in an Old Firm game. Hamza has. So to me, you've got to go with Hamza and Danilo. You've got to go with something. Now Oscar Cortez obviously is an option. I don't think he's fully match fit. I don't think he's great. Bayrami, he's just awful. I think that is probably the strongest team we can go with. I suppose you could put Connor Barron in place of Dio if you want a bit more steel in there. But look, I think there has to be changes tomorrow. And if he goes in with the same old formation, the same old, he's just showing us that he is everything we thought he is, Barry, in terms of being tactically naive, being intransigent, being almost as stubborn as Clement. And let's face it, how many of us slaughtered Clement for his stubbornness yet and sort of giving Barry a free pass on it? I do think there needs to be changes. There really does. And it needs to be, from the minute one, an aggressive, in-your-face approach to this game. We saw at Parkhead when we went out, took the game to them. They didn't like it. Now, if you want to beat Celtic, you have to be aggressive. You have to be in their face. You have to attack them, push them back, cause them problems. You can't sit off them and play pretty passy in front of the back four and slow the game down, because it allows them to come onto you. It allows them to push up, to press you back, to win the ball high and then attack you. And you just can't do that against them. I think Dortmund showed when they beat them 7-1. Bayern Munich showed. Aston Villa showed, we showed, that when you go after Celtic and you push them high, you press them high, you attack them, you go at them with speed and aggression, they will fold like a cheap suit, because they're not a good team. Yes, they have won the league this season, but they're bad champions. They're not the best team in Scotland. Well, they are the best. I'll explain that a bit better. They are not a good team, shall I say? That they are not a great team at all. This Celtic team is poor. And had you had a half decent Rangers team this season with a half decent manager, I think it would have been a hell of a lot closer this season. I really do. I really genuinely believe that. But unfortunately, we've had a very bad Rangers team that don't care unless it's a European game or we're playing Celtic. And look, I'll be honest with you. I genuinely believe that we will win tomorrow, and then we'll lose to Aberdeen next week. Because that's what these guys are. They're frauds. They're charlatans. They're the biggest bunch of crooks on planet Earth, because they can raise their game when they want to. They can play when they want to. When the eyes of the world are on them, the media is watching them, and other teams are watching them, they'll play. But the moment they're playing St Johnstone or Dundee or St Mirren or Motherwell, they just genuinely couldn't give a stuff, and they don't care because they're not bothered. At the end of the day, they've kind of down tools, given up, got broken up for their holidays. And like I said, I honestly believe that we'll win tomorrow. I think we'll win 3-1 tomorrow. I think we'll then lose to Aberdeen. I just think it will. Now, if we win tomorrow, we're going to have to put up with the Barry needs to be manager fans in stand. But let's not get things out of perspective here. Everyone knows that the players will raise their game tomorrow for Celtic, and that won't be down to Barry. That won't be down to anything he does. It'll be down to them, because they'll prove the next week that it's got nothing to do with Barry being a good manager. It's all down to whether they can be asked to play or not, because they'll probably lose to Aberdeen, because that's who they are. So, that's where we're up to at the moment, guys. And I honestly it's a really weird time, isn't it? I don't know how you guys feel out there, but it's kind of like an end to the season where I just genuinely couldn't give a fuck at the moment. I just want the season over and done with. I just want to get on with it now. I think there's an exciting summer ahead. There's going to be a new manager in place. There's going to be a rebuild. There's going to be new players coming in. Hopefully lots of deadwood like Tavernier, Dessers, Bayrami, proper heading out the door. And some good, new, exciting young players coming in. I mean, that's got to be the hope. Now, there was talk this morning of Bobby Clark from Salzburg, the former Liverpool player, who we tried to sign last summer, coming this summer. There does seem to be an awful lot of links with Red Bull, doesn't there? There seems to be a lot of Red Bull links. There's even links to Gerhard Struber, who's the FC Köln manager, former Salzburg, RB Salzburg and New York Red Bull manager. I think, this Kevin Thelwell appointment, who is, again, ex-Red Bull. Obviously, Parag Marathe and his links with Red Bull. I think, there is an awful lot of links with Red Bull coming through now, and it's really interesting. And look, I've got nothing against Red Bull coming in. Love a Red Bull, as I've said. Red Bull, if you want to sponsor the podcast, let me know. Happily drink a Red Bull on air. But there we go. So look, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we all feel the same. We just want the season over and done with, and we want a new season here. And we want to get away from this next season FC mentality that we've kind of developed a little bit over the last few years, haven't we? We've kind of been stuck in this cycle of we start a season full of hope and it all goes to shit, and then we sack the manager, and then we get a new manager, or we get an interim, and then there's hope, and then it goes to shit again, and then we sack the manager, and then we get a new manager, and we get hope, and then it goes to shit again, and etc., etc., as the dog storms through the door. So look, at the end of the day, I want to get to a position where we kind of, try and not have to sit season in, season out, having this constant mentality of next season FC, of constantly thinking about what next season holds, talking about rebuilds, talking about new managers, and I think hopefully over these next sort of 3 to 4 months, as we head into the summer, then we head towards the start of next season and the Champions League qualifiers, etc., that we get to a position where we're not going to become next season FC anymore. We are going to become back to being established, back to being, having a core of players that are there, a manager who is going to be here for more than 6 to 8 months, a manager who can do a job for us, and that's what we need as a club. And that's what we want as a club. And let's face it, as supporters, all we want is a Rangers team that is out on the park, that is competitive, that every game, no matter whether we're playing Celtic, Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Arsenal, Feyenoord, Ajax, FC Barcelona, Real Madrid, Benfica, or St Johnstone, St Mirren, Motherwell and Dundee, or Falkirk, that we are competitive in every single game and that we have a chance of at least showing ourselves positively and winning the games we're supposed to win, and competing in those where we're perhaps not supposed to win. Guys, that's what all I want at the end of the day. And you can call me whatever you want. You can say I'm being negative. You can rinse me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've got to admit, there's some fans out there that come at me for whatever reason. I've got to say, guys, if you do, if you say, oh, you're negative about the team, well, tell me something positive. Tell me something that's been really good about this season. Tell me a positive about this season, because there isn't one. You go back to being happy clappers. Just fuck off. Guys, let me know your comments. Let me know what you think. We'll obviously be back tomorrow with a video reflecting on the game. Guys, thanks for watching. It's been a pleasure to speak to you as always. Give me your comments. Give me your thoughts. And on the way out, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Help the channel to keep on growing. We're doing really well at the moment. Over 7,000 subscribers. I mean, I can't remember the exact count now. I think it's 7,200 and something. Let's have a look. 7,271 subscribers. Let's get it to 7,300 by the end of tomorrow. I don't think we're going to get to the 8,000 that I wanted to get to by the end of the season. But hey, you never know. Just keep building. Let's keep going, guys. Let's keep building our Rangers fan community here on YouTube. And always remember, please never forget, we are the people.